The biggest mistake most people make after 50 isn't eating the wrong foods. It's overthinking the whole thing. When meals get complicated, consistency disappears. And that's when energy, muscle, and recovery start slipping. So today, I'll show you a simple 4-part bowl formula inspired by the kind of meal pattern you see in Nicoya, Costa Rica, one that makes eating well feel almost automatic. What you're about to learn is a simple 4-part structure for building meals that support energy, muscle, and mobility, without tracking, meal plans, or special ingredients. I'll walk you through the 4 parts, explain why they matter more after 50, and show you 3 real bowls built around this blueprint. And by the end, you'll know exactly how to start using it this week, with food you probably already have at home. Here's something worth understanding before we get into the formula itself. After 50, the body becomes a little less forgiving about inconsistent eating. A light meal that might have been fine at 35 can leave you running low by mid-afternoon. A heavy meal that skips protein or fiber might fill you up temporarily but doesn't quite satisfy, so you find yourself back in the kitchen an hour later, not entirely sure what you're looking for. What tends to work better at this stage is a meal with more intentional structure, enough substance to sustain, enough protein to support muscle and fullness, enough fiber to keep digestion moving and energy steady. That's not complexity. It's simply a more complete meal. And interestingly, that kind of structure shows up naturally in places where people have been eating this way for generations. In Nicoya, Costa Rica, a typical meal isn't complicated. It might be a bowl or plate with beans, rice or corn, vegetables, and a modest protein. The foods themselves are simple, but the combination tends to cover the basics the body needs. Meals like that repeat day after day with small variations. Different vegetables, different preparation, sometimes eggs, sometimes fish. But the overall structure stays familiar, which is exactly the idea behind the bowl formula we're about to build. For a lot of people after 50, meals start falling into a pattern. Breakfast is light, sometimes too light. Lunch is whatever's quick, and dinner ends up doing most of the work. That doesn't mean people are eating badly. It just means meals are unstructured, and unstructured meals tend to show up later as afternoon fatigue, extra snacking, or that feeling that something about your meals just isn't working. But the interesting part is this. When meals follow a simple structure, most of those problems start to settle down surprisingly fast. The 1-bowl formula. The blueprint breaks down into 4 simple parts. Easy to remember, flexible to use, and simple enough to build with everyday ingredients. Base. This is what gives the meal its foundation, something substantial enough to carry everything else. Rice, beans, sweet potato, or corn. The base gives you steady fuel, so energy doesn't fade too quickly a couple of hours later. Without it, the bowl often looks better than it actually works. Protein. This is the anchor. After 50, muscle needs more regular support, and protein at each meal is one of the simplest ways to give it that. Eggs, beans, fish, or chicken all work. When protein is missing, the meal may feel fine at first, but it usually doesn't hold you for very long. Color, vegetables, greens, or both. This is the part of the bowl that brings fiber, variety, and balance. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, onions, leafy greens. Color makes the meal feel fresher, more balanced, and more complete than a bowl that's just starch and protein. Finisher. A small addition that brings everything together. Avocado, lime, fresh herbs, or a few seeds. This is what adds satisfaction and makes the bowl feel finished instead of merely assembled. It seems small, but it's often the difference between a meal that works and one that still leaves you wanting something else. Base, protein, color, finisher. Now, let's look at what that becomes in real life, with 3 bowls you could actually make this week. 3 bowl examples. Bowl 1, the everyday bowl. This is the one worth repeating. A base of rice and black beans, together or side by side, either works. 2 eggs on top, fried or scrambled, sliced tomato and sautéed peppers for color. avocado and lime to finish. It takes about 15 minutes, uses ingredients most people already have, and covers every part of the formula without much thought. If you only start with one, start here. Bowl 2. The heartier bowl. When you want something that carries you longer, start with sweet potato as the base. Add shredded chicken or a simply cooked piece of fish. Bring in roasted squash and a handful of greens for color, then finish with fresh herbs, lime, and a little olive oil. It takes a little more time than the first bowl, but it's the kind of meal that carries you comfortably well into the afternoon. Bowl 3. The fast bowl. This is the one for days when both time and energy are short. Warm black beans in a pan, add a quick fried egg. Then use whatever vegetables are already there: tomatoes, leftover peppers, a few slices of onion. Finish with avocado and lime. 10 minutes or less, start to finish. The structure still holds and the meal still works. And once you see how simple that can be, a few small mistakes become much easier to spot. What makes this blueprint easier to stick with than most nutrition advice is that it doesn't ask you to reinvent meals every day. The structure stays the same. The ingredients stay flexible. Once the pattern feels familiar, building a good meal becomes less of a decision and more of a reflex. And because these bowls are genuinely satisfying, they tend to repeat themselves naturally. One day the base is rice and beans. The next day it's sweet potato. One bowl leans more toward eggs and avocado. Another leans toward fish, squash, and lime. Same blueprint, different feel. And once you understand that, the few mistakes that throw the pattern off become much easier to spot. Common mistakes. A few things tend to get in the way when people first start building meals like this. And fortunately, they're all easy to fix. The first is leaning too heavily on the base. A bowl of rice and vegetables can look healthy, but without a protein anchor, it usually won't hold you for long. The second is going too minimal, so focused on being good that the meal stops being satisfying. And if a bowl leaves you looking for something else an hour later, it's not really working. The third is forgetting the finisher. That small addition of fat, flavor, or both is often what makes the meal feel complete instead of just assembled. None of these are complicated to fix. They're just worth noticing. And once you do, the whole blueprint starts working much more reliably, which makes starting this week a lot easier than it sounds. Start this week. The simplest way to start is to pick one of the bowls you just saw, just one, and make it sometime in the next few days. Not a new routine, not a weekly meal plan. Just a simple meal built around the same structure, using ingredients you likely already have. If it works, make it again. The same bowl, the same pattern. Repetition isn't a problem. It's how a habit actually forms. Once that first version feels natural, you can try a second variation. The structure stays the same. Only the ingredients change. The goal this week isn't variety, it's familiarity. Because the real power of a blueprint like this isn't any single meal. It's having a simple structure you can return to again and again without needing to overthink it. What makes this blueprint worth keeping isn't that it comes from one specific place or follows a perfect set of rules. It's that it works, quietly, consistently, and without asking much from you, beyond a little intention at mealtime. Base, protein, color, finisher. 4 simple parts you can return to on almost any day with whatever you have on hand. That quiet simplicity is part of the deeper pattern behind places where people tend to stay active and well for a long time. If you want to keep going, I'd watch the Nicoya video next. It expands the bigger pattern behind this bowl in a very practical way. And if you want the newest step in this series, I'll point you there too.